Hey guys, on this week's Hollywood Hills shows, we're out of the studio and we are out with the beautiful people of Farm Jam. This is obviously where we have been filming the opening round of the Farm Jams, and we are going straight into edit for that. But before we went out to Farm Jam, we went down and chatted all things National Enduro with Brett Stevens. All right, guys, so as you said, Hollywood is trying to get more involved in a little bit more different aspects of the sport. We're down here at Raceworks KTM in Roodepoort, hanging out with Brett Stevens. Brett's one of the main dudes who's been instrumental in putting together this season's brand new National Enduro Championship. Brett, you sound like you've got a story to tell me, dude.
Oh, it's a long story, Matt. It's a long story, lots of pain, lots of suffering, but yeah, we're getting there.
So listen,
this is going to be a great year.
You and I were hanging out at the roof, and we started to talk, but obviously the focus was on the roof. But now we can actually start thinking about this season that's upon us. I mean, I've never seen a season like this that starts so early.
Yeah.
But in a nutshell, because everyone's coming up to me and phoning me and WhatsApping me and trying to get hold of me on Hollywood and saying, what's happening with the National Enduro? From the horse's mouth, what's the story? Let's start with the regionals.
So I think the easiest way to explain National Enduro for 2024 is, last year and the year before, we had 2 years of restructuring, look at what works, what doesn't work, talking to manufacturers, talking to riders, and trying to put a game plan together to take National Enduro back to where it was 5-10 years ago. And some part of what we realized through that process is that National Enduro is more than just pure National Enduro racing. We have to build an ecosystem around National Enduro, which is down to regional level, recruiting new riders to the sport, building them through a regional system, then onto nationals. Instead of having nationals as a standalone, which most other sports do, that's the pinnacle of the sport. So by default, that's fewer people. But we've got to cast a wider net, and this is where the regional championships came into play. If you look at Western Cape, South, which is Natal and Free State, and Northerns, which is Gauteng and Mpumalanga, Limpopo, all of those have a great gene pool of riders, and not just enduro riders. I mean, we're talking MX riders who want to come across to enduro, cross-country guys who want to come across, and of course enduro riders who want to get to national level and roof level, but they haven't had a path to progress through it. So the regional system has been designed now. We've partnered with Lowveld Enduro in the north, KZN Racing in the south, and CSMX in Western Cape, because they have infrastructure. They've all been around a long time. They understand racing, but they also have a great gene pool of riders. So the regional system is a big focus this year, to draw in riders into enduro, build that skills base, and progress them through a regional championship onto nationals. So part of the gene pool within National Enduro is getting that broad net, pulling people in, and that progression through to National Enduro roof and onwards.
I'm going to jump in there. Let's try and summarize to the man in the street how the system works. I think I've got a kind of a grasp on it. You've got to basically compete in the regionals to be able to score points in the nationals. That's kind of like an overview of it, but you've got more details to that.
Yeah, so I mean, to simplify it for the man who's new to enduro, or sort of has been in the system but not sure how to progress it, is at a base level. The guy who's coming into enduro for the first time, at a regional level, you can move into your regional championship, but you don't have to jump straight into the regional level. You can race your Enduro Cup or your club series. So Enduro Cup has been built around your clubman. So somebody who's new to enduro, we remove the intimidation factor. You can race without an MSA license. Your entry on the day includes your day license. You can pitch up, ride and race. But the intimidation factor is gone. So Enduro Cup is for your guy who wants to test the waters. He wants to be in that system. He's also going to get the chance to experience racing alongside national riders and regional riders, but without the intimidation factor. So if you're a man in the street who wants to get into Enduro Cup at a regional level and at nationals is where you start. No intimidation factor. And remember, I think an important thing that a lot of riders always ask us is, enduro has a high barrier to entry in terms of skill. So there's a big intimidation factor in terms of, if I go to enduro, am I going to be walking along ledges, looping my bike out? We have HESA, which is the hard enduro series, which we'll discuss later, which separates that. So National Enduro and Regional Enduro and Enduro Cup is true old school enduro. So you're not going to have a situation where, like for parents, where they send their juniors in, where Jimmy goes off into the mountain and doesn't come back for a while. When he does, he's crying and he wants to play Game Boy. so we've removed that. So it's traditional enduro, old school rivers, banks, lots of fun flowing stuff, no speed. Okay, so your guy who comes from cross country or MX, he'll be able to go into regional enduro or enduro cup, even national enduro. He'll get around that loop, and he's gonna have a lot of fun. So your man in the street, your starting point is enduro cup. That's the wide net that we cast to bring people in. You progress into your regional championships. If you're ready, a lot of people actually, once they ride enduro cup, will realize, you know what, I can actually do regionals. Now I can do this. It's not crazy tech. And then obviously regionals is your qualification into international. So there's a nice ecosystem of progression through low intimidation factor, enduro cup, regionals, and nationals. And it's all seamless. So those events all run alongside each other at events. So you're going to be in the system. You're going to see how the nationals run. You're able to compare your times to national riders. But again, without the intimidation factor. So there's no dick swinging this year. There's not going to be, you're not going to have people hanging off ledges, and that's great for clicks and views. But you see the price of bikes nowadays. People want to go out there, have fun, and build their skills over time. And I think the way we've built the series this year is you can get in at the start of the year as a relative beginner and progress yourself. By the time you get to May for the first national and Enduro Cup, remember, you can actually build your skills to a level where you're going to be comfortable there.
Perfect. That brings us nicely to the point of talking about how to get to the nationals and how we're going to be scoring points at the nationals as well. I'm going to break it down, and feel free to correct me, but I think you gave me a really good brief yesterday on it. So there's going to be 2 national 3-day festival style events, one at the beginning of the year and one later on in the year. These are going to be point scoring national championship rounds, where on the first day you'll do a certain style of riding, the second day a different style of riding, and the third day a different style of riding. So, and the cool thing is we're going to be trying and feed off the regional championship to bring all the guys out to these events, which are going to give us national champions.
Exactly.
So just tell us how that works, the specifics, because the big thing for me was trying to understand, and I've got a grip on it now, how to score enough points or enter in enough races to be able to be eligible to score points at the national.
Okay, so let's go back a step. So let's go back to the reason we have 2 3-day events. When we spoke to people about nationals, there's this perception that nationals are not supported and that enduro was in trouble. Because if you go to a national, in the old days, you had 60, 70, 80 national riders, so the optics weren't great. But if you look at it, at a national level, that's what it boils down to. So national as a standalone was a challenge. So what we did this year with the regional system and the qualification process is, you've got to build an ecosystem in each region where people support a regional championship, qualify through the regional system to race at national. So in your region, whether it's Lowveld, CSMX or KZN, you've got to race 4 or 5 events. I think Natal is doing, you've got to race 4 or 4 events, and that gets you your entry to nationals.
Yeah.
Enduro Cup is different. Enduro Cup is that fun band. You can pitch up, you can ride and race. But to qualify for nationals, support your local series. And the reason we've done that, obviously we want to build a healthy regional series, which is why we've put our efforts behind a single club in each region. And also because, structure, consistency, rules, regulations, how tracks are set up, all of that is easy to get that consistency with a single club. So race your regional. You're going to build skills because a big part of that is going to be doing training programs around it, but you're going to get that look and feel of a national within your regional series. So support the regional series, do your 4 or 5 races, and by default you get an entry into national. Cool. If you miss that, you can still go to national ride Enduro Cup. So you're going to get the experience. So I think an important part of nationals this year is nationals is not a standalone event. If you put an event as a standalone, it's the optics aren't good. There's just too much missing in the broader picture. So a national now, that festival environment, a national is a small part of that 3-day festival. Around that you've got adventure rides, you've got fun barrel racing, hill climbs, entertainment. You've got Enduro Cup, so your clubbies are there, racing national loops and getting a feel for what it is, and racing people of their own level. So the national guys will get out there, do their thing. But for me, the most exciting part of 2024 is that Enduro Cup band, because that's guys who are new to the sport, juniors, ladies. I mean, that's a big focus for me this year, and that's where the numbers are, and that's where you see the guys having fun. So a lot of it is geared around your club system,
the vibe,
and the national guys will have their place. I mean, those guys, they're going to be there anyway.
Okay. For the national guys, take us through those 3 days of the national festival events. Day 1, where
Okay,
we're at.
so what we've done, so also in that survey that we did is, there's that old move back to special test racing. And the point-to-point racing, there's a place for that. But what we're seeing is, racing is more than just about riders and teams. The spectator factor, sponsors. The guys on bikes have already bought all their stuff. Sponsors want to address a wider audience. So, when we talk about the race formats, the old days of point-to-point racing, laps, that's great, but it's out and back. So if you're sitting in the pits or you're a spectator, you see people idling through and off they go and they come back an hour later. So we've changed the format this year. So on a Friday afternoon, and this is for Enduro Cup as well, we're going to have the sprint Enduro. So people arrive Friday morning, get themselves ready. Late afternoon, it's a 30-minute sprint for Enduro Cup. So for example, if you take Pilgrim's Rest, that'll be a sprint through the town, up the stairs, through the hotel, but it's 30 minutes, so it's going to be intense. People think, because it's a full points event, people think, hey, 30 minutes, believe me, that's going to be a tough thing. National guys, that's going to be a 45-minute sprint. So you have to think things through. If you sprint for the first 20 minutes, you're going to have a tough time on the tail end. So Friday afternoon, sprint, and obviously short course, that's going to be 3 to 5 Ks, very spectator friendly, and very condensed and intense. So aggressive racing, hands-on, up close and personal. So that's your Friday. And remember, that's full points. Okay. Saturday, round 2, another. Each of these are separate races. Saturday we do the special test racing. So you're going to have, for example, a 30 to 35K loop, the old special stage type racing that we had in 5-10 years ago, with a hard enduro special. And now remember, your hard enduro special is going to be 500 meters to a kilometer. Okay, so your cross country guy, your MX guy who comes in there, he's just got to survive through that section, because after the hard enduro section, somewhere in that loop, you're going to have your enduro test, which is going to be your river banks, your traditional enduro style, probably 3 to 5 Ks. And
it's back to time stage styles.
Back to time. So each of those specials is timed. And then you'll have a flat track test, which is your traditional bunted grass section, a bit longer. So your motocross and cross country guy, he might suffer on the hard enduro piece, but he's going to blow the doors off on the flat track. The enduro guy, he's going to do well on the harder stuff. So there's balance, and that's why we've got different distances. So the penalty for a cross, we've done the sums to make sure that it's equitable across the 3. So that's day 2. Sunday we go to the old point-to-point racing, which is the traditional, like everybody knows, traditional enduro. But what we're doing now is, and we're encouraging the regional guys, is on the point-to-point racing, is make sure you cloverleaf. So from a spectator point of view and from a pit crew and a support point of view, is at the start you'll have a racing section. So it's not a timed racing section, a racing section for spectators. You'll go out on your loop, halfway through the loop you'll come close to the pits again, and there'll be another spectator section, not a pit stop. Out again, and then your third, when you're coming into the pits at the end of the lap, there'll be another racing section. So during the course of a lap, you're going to see a rider racing at the start, racing halfway through, and racing on the way in. So spectators, that vibe, that whole carnival style event at all the races is going to be there. So it's point to point, but you're going to see your rider actually racing. Because a lot of people, like at IXC, a lot of people came after and said, we've been going to races for years, but I've never actually seen what happens out there. All I see is them come idling into the pits, chaos for 10 seconds, and off they go. Now you're seeing what enduro is up close and personal. When people see it in the flesh, it's contagious. So that's a big part of what we're doing this year is making sure that we take the action to people who haven't seen it before. Because that's what sponsors at the end of the day. It's an eyeball game. Guys out there on the bikes, you're not selling to them.
I think
so. We want to pull spectators and we want people new to the sport. Come and see what it is, and you'll be pleasantly surprised. You'll be amazed at what actually goes on in an enduro event.
I think I'm very excited about the fact that we're going to be changing the game back to the old sprint styles. I think the perception of enduro has blurred the lines for the last few years between enduro and hard enduro. Everyone hears the word enduro and thinks of the roof of Africa. And I think this year is the idea of pulling it back to sprint style racing, like when Liquorland used to run this tour. And I'm very excited about that, because I think the enduro, everyone thinking it being hard enduro, has scared a lot of dudes away. And I think the idea of the race series that you're putting together now is going to actually sort a lot of that out.
And I think you raised a super important point, is that enduro and hard enduro, they share the DNA, but hard enduro is not something you jump in from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a progression. So we've split this year. We've got HESA, which Trav and Will are running, which is the hard enduro series. So that's still a national championship, but that's your old school hard enduro, short laps, but that's a progression. So we don't want to blur the lines between enduro and hard enduro.
Yeah.
There is a progression. Hard enduro is where the sport's going. We know that, but you've also got to build a base through enduro, which splits out your hard enduro talent.
For sure.
So I think historically, as we've spent so much time focusing on hard enduro, that it's a sport that eats its young. You get kids who come to hard enduro, and there's some that have the mental fortitude to jump straight in, and there's others that haven't had that time to grow into it, and that unfortunately that harms the sport. So the new structures, once people are in enduro and they start to see, it's that old thing. You go ride the Wolf the first time, you think, why am I riding rocks? This is rubbish. I want to go buy a 450 and go and ride around my park.
Yeah.
But over time, now you start to learn how to ride rocks. Now becomes a challenge, now becomes a test, and you evolve. So the way we've set it up now is that over the next couple of years, we should see youngsters coming into enduro. This year, we can already see 65, 85 ladies. We're seeing them come in. And we're giving them a platform to get into enduro, evolve and grow, build the skill level. And then when they want to dip their toe into hard enduro, then we've got the HESA series. So, that it's important that people understand that national enduro is enduro.
Got you.
Okay, you're not going to be. You might have to scrum every now and then. Listen, we're not making it a sissy sport. But like I say to parents who call me, is Jimmy coming on 85 to national enduro or enduro cup in those 3 days there, he will get around that loop. If he can walk in Chugum, he will be able to get around that loop. He's not going to come back, and he's going to come back and say that was lacquer.
Okay.
So that's a commit that we've made, is that enduro is enduro. Okay, so your MXer, your cross-country guy, those loops are built. Yes, they're going to be tough, but everything's going to be rideable, and you're not going to ever find yourself in a situation where you're hanging off a ledge or falling off a cliff or whatever it is.
Brett, that's a great explanation. Just to wrap things up here as well, Brett, obviously you're doing a big rebranding process at the moment. Yep. A lot of social media, especially in the last week, has started to come to life. So what are the pages, what are the sites, where can guys go find out a little bit extra?
Obviously all the regions have their club sites, so Lowveld, CSMX and KZN Racing. We've got the SA National Enduro site, Instagram, Facebook.
That's SANE for you guys that are looking?
Yep. We're continually updating there on both of those platforms. There's a YouTube channel that'll be coming soon. But also just reach out to me, message me, I'll get back to you. And no question is a stupid one. I say to all the parents, especially for juniors and people new to it, ask the questions, and we'll be doing training sessions in the region so people know what to expect. But yeah, call us.
Perfect.
Call your clubs, call us, and we'll talk you through it.
Good man. Good luck to you, Brett. And we're going to be working with Brett throughout the year, trying to make a bit more noise and shine a light on the new reinvented and repackaged, rebranded idea of South African National Enduro. Well, thanks to Brett for that, and hopefully we can work with the guys for the SA National Enduro Championship for 2024. Sounds like they've got some amazing journeys and adventures for us on the page. Obviously behind me you can see this is the end of the day. Shop is wrapped up at Farm Jam. I'm not going to give anything away, and hopefully there's not too many spoilers out there on social media, but watch out for next week's Hollywood Hills show, where it's all things Farm Jam from this amazing venue in Botshabelo.